Hello, everybody. This is DFS Chan coming to you here to talk about tomorrow's LPL two-game slate. Um, we had an LPL season opener yesterday, two games. Unfortunately, I did not have a video posted, but if you follow me on Twitter or X, I shared my thoughts on who the winners are going to be, were going to be, and I think we got them bet on. RNG played very well, and I think BLG kind of had a little hiccup at the beginning of the first game, but they came back and won that series. So we're 2-0 in picking the winners, and today we have closer matchups, I think, based on the Vegas odds. So we have a very interesting slate. So yeah, I'm ready to dive in, so let's do it. But before we go there, let's make sure this thing is working. Okay, perfect. All right, sorry. Um, so yeah, so we have a two-game slate. Um, we have OMG versus Team WE, and we have Anyone's Legend versus FPS, FunQuest Phoenix. Um, it's an interesting one because I think I mentioned this for LCK. These teams are fairly new. I know in China it's a little bit different, and we have a little bit of data because they did play in this preseason tournament called the Macias Cup. So I used that data to an extent that I could use, just to get a glimpse of what they can do and what kind of form that they're in. Given that this is a new roster, respectively, for each of these teams, to kind of have some time to gel together. But initially, how they look in those preseason games, I think it's important to kind of take a look at those, but also with a grain of salt. Um, but at the same time, it kind of tells us where they're at in terms of figuring out their identity on how to play and where their strengths and weaknesses may be in terms of the lanes and the skill sets, for each of these new players that are trying to fit in into the new team. So I'll talk a little bit about those things, as well as the match predictions that I'll have at the end. So first, OMG is an interesting one, only because Starry here is starting at AD carry instead of Abel. Abel has been the long-time AD carry player for OMG, and he also played in the preseason tournament called the Macias Cup, like I said. But today, yeah, we have a confirmed starter here in Starry. Now, some people, I think somebody asked me earlier, do I think that Starry could get benched after game one if they lose the first game? I think this is such a big decision for the team to start, the coaching staff for OMG to start Starry. I think they're just gonna let him play out the entire series, all three games or all two games, whatever the case may be, even if they lose the first game. So my thought is thinking, my thought process is like, this is such a big decision to start Starry over Abel, unless that Abel is not starting for another legal reason that I haven't seen. It could be the case in the LPL, as you guys saw some other stuff happening last year. But Starry is starting over Abel. I don't think he's going to get subbed. But there is a chance. Like, this is the sole position on the team, a carry position, where there is a substitution risk. But like somebody asked me, what do I think the percentage is? I think it's probably like 10 to 90, 10% chance that he might get subbed. I think it's such a big decision. I think they're just gonna let him ride it out. So that's my 2 cents on that. And who is Starry? He played in the LDL, based on my research, last season. And he's also paired up with Xiao Fang in the jungle position there for OMG, who played up and down, really, in the Demacias Cup. In the first couple games of the Demacias Cup, they played against the LPL level teams, where he struggled a bit, especially against RNG. I remember the first game. And then in the third game, they actually played against a lower level team where he dominated. So I do think he will struggle a little bit going up against LPL level junglers. And then also Starry starting here at 80 carry adds uncertainty to OMG's chance of winning here. But I think it's a pretty strong group. As strong as they can be, just given how they have looked. They're new, but how they have looked in the past in the preseason games. Now, Starry, I haven't seen with the rest of his team, but the numbers from his days last season looked decent. So I do think it's a downgrade from Abel. Abel has been pretty solid for OMG, as you guys know, if you guys have been playing League of Legends DFS. So I do think it's a little bit of downgrade, and that there's a lot of uncertainty about Xiaofeng, how he's going to perform. Um, so yeah, so I think there's that. And then for Team WE, on the other side of this matchup, there's an interesting one as Hung, is in there at jungle. As we all know, he's an average jungler. He has had up and down here last year. I do think he's a pretty good jungler, but toward the end of the season last year, he was kind of trending down. His form was going down, and even in Demasia's Cup, he didn't look great. But I don't think it was his fault. Like I watched the highlights, he actually played pretty well early in the game, and then he just didn't have good synergy with the bottom lane with Prince and Iwandi. Prince now, starting at 80 carry for Team WE, coming from LCS, and then before that, coming from LCK. Um, there may be some language barriers. I do believe the rest of this team is Chinese, so we'll see how it goes. But not the fact that he's Korean doesn't really matter these days because, as you saw, Ruler, going from LCK to LPL has adjusted pretty well for JDG, but they also had Kanavi who could speak Korean, right? So I'm just gonna check real quick how that looks right here. Let me check out the roster here. LPL has so many teams that it is insane to keep track of all these off-season transactions, but I think it's fairly interesting. Yeah, you see Team WE, we have four Chinese players, then one Korean, and then one from Taiwan. So, I mean, they all you know, to communicate. Fofo has been in the LPL for a long time. So yeah, we'll see how the communication barrier goes, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment. Having having played in that preseason tournament, I think Prince, probably got his feet wet, and playing with his new teammates. Now OMG is an interesting one, so let's go back to OMG that I just talked about. All right. Sometimes it's hard to tell. They keep changing their logo. I think this was last year's, but still, like, all right, they got Starry and Abel both listed as starters. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Xiaofeng is an interesting one. Like I said, I think he's the ultimate question mark for this matchup. Um, yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I think that's a good one. I do think I'm gonna go with probably Team WE, just based on consistency. But actually, it's not a strong wing. Like I think either team could win. The fact that Xiaofeng has come from the LDL, and then Starry coming from LDL, we really don't have any data to compare the EGPMs and other metrics that I typically look at. Xiaofeng actually rated pretty well last year in those games that he played in. He actually, I think, played for top esports LDL, or rather academy here, but he actually didn't even end up starting towards the end of last season, over NIU. So he just hasn't had much like competition, competitive games under his belt. I mean, I do think he's uber talented, at least based on what the numbers show. And then also Starry is an interesting one. I just feel like there's a lot of uncertainty there. So I'm probably going to go with Team WE ultimately as the winner of this matchup. But I would play both of these teams. I do think there's a potential to for a high kill upside game here. Um, I watched the OMG games in preseason. They love to fight. Now, is that part of is it because of Abel? Now that Abel's gone, like is it going to be reduced in terms of kill upside? I don't think so. I think Xiaofeng was very aggressive in those 3 games that he played in. I really like him. Like it's fun to watch him, and it also means it really increases the upside, kill upside for this matchup. And Prince likes to fight as well. He's more of an aggressive AD carry. I like and then I think Team WE had about a little bit above average CKPM. So last year, and given that they have few returning players, I think it's a comparable analysis there. So I have this matchup between OMG and Team WE as the more uh, uh, higher kill upside matchup. So that's probably where I'm gonna get the long stack from. That's what I'm recommending. Now, in terms of the winner, like I said, I think it's a toss up. A lot of uncertainty, so I'll probably go with Team WE, but at the same time, I'm not really positive about that. Um, Whereas here, between Anyone's Legend versus FPX, I think Anyone's Legend is going to dominate. I like Anyone's Legend a lot. Croco actually looked pretty good in preseason, um, given that he is a newcomer for this team coming from LCK. I actually thought he played pretty well in his first few games in the Demacius Cup. Hope and Kale, and Hope got a lot of flack before playing for JDG. He didn't perform well, on that JDG team with super talent. He got replaced by Ruler eventually the next season. But he actually is a pretty solid AD carry. I do think he is up to par um, with Duck Dom against Duck Dom, their counterpart for FPX, or not, if not better. I do think Kale is an interesting support now. Like this year, on this meta, support's really not that important unless you pick a roaming champion and so forth. I think in the LPL, in the first game of the season opener, I'm gonna have to side with Anyone's Legend based on what I've seen, what I saw in the preseason tournament. On the other side of this match of FPX, I saw them as well. They just did not play well. I mean, Anyone's Legend overall as a team didn't play well, but there were some signs of hope, like between Croco and Hope. And FPX on the other side really played worse than Anyone's Legend as an overall team output, in my opinion, just based on what I saw in the highlights. Moyan is an interesting one. I think he could be an up and coming jungler, in my opinion. But I just don't like the rest of this lineup. Duck Dom and Life. I think Duck Dom's overrated. Even his LCK days. Care, I think he's okay. I mean, he was pretty decent last season. The Shallow was pretty good, but top laners don't really matter that much in this meta, in my opinion. As long as they do it, they're the opponent is good enough to be able to kind of withstand any skill gap or laning phase and so forth. Because the jungler, like I said before on my previous videos, likes to focus or is forced to focus the bottom lanes, and the jungle AD carry support synergy is the most important. The lanes and combos that I typically look at, and I think Anyone's Legend has a better version of that. Now, in terms of the mid lane, Shanks versus Care, I'm a huge believer in Shanks. Coming from Team WE, I really loved him as a player last season. I think he was just stuck on a bad team. So I do think this is a good time for him to kind of showcase his talent, surrounded by probably better talent in Croco and Hope. Uh, Maybe not better talent, but I think a better team eventually. Um, that they'll find their identity. But FPX on the other side, like I just don't really see a future of them doing well between Moyan, Dottam, and Life. like I get it, the bottom lanes, like coming from Korea, like they're gonna do really well. I don't think so. Like I think they were overrated, respectively, them in life. I think Moyan is not as good as Krakow. So, like, maybe except for the top lane, I think every other lane, I think I'll have to favor anyone's legend here tonight. So that's probably my strong pick for anyone's legend, and I think this is gonna be a lower in kill. And I don't want to stereotype things, but there are a lot more former LCK players in this matchup compared to the other matchup. So, like Croco, Kale, we have Duff Dom and Life. Like, I think they're going to bring the low CKPM, maybe low kill upside tendency from Korea to China. I mean, especially in the LCK, newer players, they tend to try to play more of a mistake-free League of Legends or conservative approach, so forth. So that's why I think, especially the jungler, Croco, even though I think any AL is going to win, I think this matchup is going to be the one that's going to be lower in kills. So I think the short stack should come from this matchup compared to the long stack that I recommended for the other matchup between OMG and Team WE. So that's where I'm leaning. Like I said, I'm leaning in the first matchup, Team WE, just given the continuity and more certainties there compared to OMG. I do think this is going to be higher in kill upside. Now, shorter stack, like I said, AL, FPX, but I'm more confident in this match winner prediction in AL over FPX. So yeah, I think that's really it. Like I said, I would use a lot more data for analysis here uh, today, and I will in the next couple weeks. But this is the first matchup for these teams in the LPL regular season. So I don't really have I don't have much data to kind of go off of. Even if I were to use the preseason data, that was not only against LPL teams, but also other inferior teams that would play in other leagues or other tiers of the league. So we wouldn't be comparing apples to apples. But yeah, so I think that's all I got for you guys today. Let's see if you guys have any questions. I'll go through that real quick. Let's see. All right, Jolly says been following you since RotoWire days. Yeah. Welcome back, Jolly. I remember you as well, so thanks for joining. I hope these videos are helpful for you and for everybody else. But yeah, hopefully we go 4-0 in our match predictions after today. We were 2-0 yesterday. So I think that's very important to me to have a good track record, and I'm planning to have at least 70% or above winning rate or correct pick rate. So hopefully that goes. But yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, or if you guys think of any other questions, please feel free to reach out to DFS Chan on Twitter or on Discord and TrueDFS channel. Please like and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. And also my longer write-up and top plays and stacks will be available on TrueDFS premium section of the website. If you are a TrueDFS member, you would get access to that. So yeah, please consider joining as a member for TrueDFS. Otherwise, yeah, so long. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll come back with the LPL LCK 4-game slate that's gonna start tomorrow night, and that's where the money's at, and that's where we're gonna bring the most value. So yeah, stay tuned. Hope you have a good night, and have a good luck out